everyone. Welcome to another phenomenal episode of The Power of Exposure. We at Parent Matters feel like it's so important to have phenomenal stories heard, meet leaders in different industry, and understand what's out here for our children and our young scholars. So, without further ado, I'd love to introduce our phenomenal guest, Dr. Lawrence Drake. He is the CEO and president of LEAD, and LEAD is a phenomenal program that three of my children have been so fortunate to participate in. And I have to really say that it was a jump start for us as a family and being exposed to opportunities outside of their school. So it's a near and dear organization to me, and I'm forever grateful. Forever grateful. So, without further ado, Dr. Drake, thank you so much for your time and joining us today.
It's my pleasure, Rona. I'm so excited to be with you all today, and it just I get full every time I think about all the people that LEAD has touched over the years since its inception in 1980. We're over 21,000 plus participants, and our LEAD scholars, which are K through 12, our LEAD fellows, who are those who are in college, and our LEAD alums, which are those who are out of college and in graduate school in the workforce. It's a phenomenal community, and it really is a community because it connects on all kinds of levels. So grateful to be here today, and I'm always excited to talk about what we're doing and how we can be helpful to families like yours.
Wow, thank you so much. So, wow, I have so many questions, first of all.
Well,
but
shoot.
uh, LEAD has grown, it's evolved since my daughter participated in 2009. And I know you said this is the 40th year, correct?
Yeah, 2020 was our 40th year, so we're in our 41st year now.
Wow, that's amazing. That's absolutely that's so crucial to hear because you hear about so many programs and opportunities that people talk about, and they say, "Oh yeah, there was this program back then." And so being able to be sustainable this amount of time is huge. So
Yeah.
kudos to you, the founders, and all the leaders who participated in its being sustainable for this amount of time. So you have been with Lead for how long?
So I came to LEAD. I retired as a corporate executive. My background was I was both a corporate executive and an entrepreneur. I spent 38 years running companies. When I retired, I was the president and CEO of the Coca-Cola Company's business in Africa.
Wow.
And I was responsible for about a quarter of the continent's business. Um, and when I came back, I actually had made a couple of goals about 10 years before I retired. And one of those was I was going to go back and get a terminal degree, a PhD. And I said that because I had lived or worked in about 60 countries by that time. And I was very curious about why our learning systems in America were performing at the level they were, meaning particularly Black and Brown people weren't able to take advantage of learning in creative ways, and more specifically that the system itself, the ecosystem, just I felt was broken compared to other countries. And what I saw was the United States of America continued to fall behind, regardless of what others in the country believed our reputation was. It was about our outcomes and what we were actually delivering. And so I became, when I retired, I came back home, and most people think, well, you're going to retire, you're going to play golf or whatever you're going to do. And of course, my energy is just the opposite of that. So I went back and pursued both another master's degree and a PhD in psychology for the purposes of really studying human behavior, but not becoming a clinician. I wanted to use it to really deal with immersive learning and how we use technology to learn, and more specifically, how we actually engage and enjoy different models of learning, what I call learning access models that are different than the traditional ways that we engage. So anyway, I was sort of introduced to LEAD which of course stands for Leadership, Education, and Development. And someone said, look, they're looking for a board member. Would you be interested? And I said, well, let me look at the organization because I'm not going to just be a part of stuff. I got enough, things on my plate. And and at that time, I was running a couple of companies for a venture capital firm I was an advisor for. And I said, well, okay, let's talk about it. And I talked with some people about it, and they invited me to join the board. Long story short, I became a member of the board, and 3 years later became chair of the board. And then in 2013 became the CEO.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome.
So
Well,
so
first of all,
it's been a great journey.
thank goodness you came back and didn't want to just play golf.
I'm not very good at it, so it's good that I didn't actually.
Extraordinary career. I mean, I feel like we could just ask a million questions about your previous life and what you did. And that's just, and what a position to be in to mentor and share with other kids. That journey that you've already taken is powerful. So tell us about LEAD, and for any parents or a high school or K through 12 listening, or actually beyond, because like I said, LEAD has expanded more than what my kids experienced originally. Why would a family want to look at LEAD?
Well, first of all, one of the blessings that we've had, and in some ways it's been a curse, but one of the blessings we've had is we've had wonderful families like yours, where our program has been exchanged about what it is, word of mouth, and we've never marketed Lead ever. We haven't had to. We always get more applications than we have seats, and that continues to be the case. But what we decided to do when I presented to the board, to my board about 3.5 years ago, as we were approaching our 40th year, I decided that it was no longer appropriate to talk about a 3-year strategic plan or a 5-year strategic plan, that when we turned 40, I wanted the organization to be looking at a 60-year strategic plan, which means where would we be when we get to be 100? Because what I've learned, or what I learned in my corporate career, was that um, you know if it wouldn't be a vision if everybody could see it. And so the way I describe it to my board, and to the way I talk to other people, is that Lead is embarking upon its preferred future, and I won't be around to see it, more likely than not. But the fact of the matter is, it's my job, and certainly my passion and my aspiration, to lay the foundation for that. So what we experienced was this idea of who Lead was. And so we had to sort of trudge through all of the great things we had done. Yes, 100% graduation rate from college, 21,000 people that we've had, 44% African American, 38% Latino, 11% Native American, 4% Caucasian, 3% Asian. That sort of has been our moniker, and almost equal male female. And so we think, well, you got a great story to tell, and we do. And the but is that when we started 40 years ago, there were there were probably two or three organizations that were kind of doing what we do, and only one or two of them had a college residency experience, where the young people, while they were in high school, got to go live on a college campus and have that experience, and be taught by professors from the faculty of the university, but also by professional faculty from the community and from industry. Today, even though all of the programs that are out there aren't doing that, we have over 1,100 competitors, so to speak, or people who are doing what we call college prep in some way, shape, or form. So college prep is great, and we're glad that a lot of people are doing it, but it's not necessarily affecting Black and brown kids equally either. So why should you consider Lead? Well, I would just say, thinking about your family, um, what do you want for your son or daughter for the future, and what do you want for your family? I was a first generation college student as well.
Wow.
A homeless kid at 16. I was living on the street. I had no interest in going to college.
Wow.
And as I look at having 5 degrees today, my grandmother would, be happy, because she's the one who said, and she was one of 20 who said, you're going to college. And I was like, in my head, like, mother, which is what I used to call her, why in the world would I do that?
Wow.
Uh, but she had this vision of me that she believed I could be more than what I thought I could be. And that's always the challenge for a parent is to, I have 5 children and 6 grandchildren. And what I say to even my adult children is that you haven't done your best work yet. And my oldest is 41. You haven't done your best work yet. And I at 66, I believe the same. So, lead is that catalyst that continues to challenge families to ask yourselves the question, have you done your best work yet? And have your children done their best work? And if you can answer to the question no, then you ought to be looking at lead.
Yes. Yes. Wow. That is awesome. And as you know, with 3 children who've participated in lead, it has been life changing, life changing. And when I ask them those questions, like what happened, I mean, I just remember so many stories, and I'm hoping one of them at least can join the call. But I remember um my youngest son saying that it was pivotal in him becoming an eloquent public speaker. Still kind of shy, on the shy side, but it gave
Sure.
him the tools that he needed, which was huge. So those soft skills, just being able to, work in different environments, and feel comfortable. That is, there's no price on that. There's no price on that. And you can't learn that in a classroom. Most people don't learn that in their home. It also taught him how to pitch businesses. So he
Mhm.
is dead set on your dream of becoming an entrepreneur like you did. That is all he wants to do. And I don't know if that, I think
Good
that
point.
all kind of jumped
Good.
off probably on a beach near Northwestern with
That's
his
good.
with his group, with his cohort. But
Yeah. Yeah.
that was phenomenal for him, and he's at Howard now, and consistently coming up with business ideas on a regular basis. And I will tell you that he was one of the first ones to jump on that whole GameStop experiment,
Good.
I'll call it.
Well, quite frankly, we just signed a partnership with Morgan Stanley, and we're actually, when we talk about what we're pivoting to, um, one of the centerpieces of our core strategy for the next 60 years is around family learning. And why do I say that? I say that because not only my research, but also what I know as a kid growing up. It was exhibited to me by my mom. My mom, you know, uh, a lot of people talk about, single moms. You shared your experience. And the one thing, I wrote a book a year ago. Well, we released the book a year ago, wrote it the year before. We lost our oldest daughter at 41 in 2017. And when she passed away as a Black father, or first of all, as a man, and then as a father, and then as a Black father, what I found is there was no literature that really spoke to um, me. And one of the things that came out of the book was this idea of the importance of families learning together how to raise a child, and a man and a woman, particularly a Black man and a Black woman, really understanding that whether they like each other or not, once they have children, their life changes and their responsibility to themselves changes appropriately, because it's less about them and more about the children. And and um and having lost a child, which I would never want anyone to do, it's not a community that I want anyone to join. um that hits home more than ever every day. Just this morning I had a very good cry after coming off of a call with my grandson's school, who is her son actually, and his dad, because they were interacting with other parents at this new school that he's a part of. And my heart was full, and my spirit was full this morning, because what we had on that call was families learning together.
Wow.
And so we know my mother didn't graduate high school. She got pregnant with me when she was 15. She had not graduated high school. And I recall many times when she would um, call me when she was studying for her GED at 29, almost 30. and saying, come in here and read this to me. And what
Mhm.
I discovered is the more interested she became in her work, the more dogmatic she became about me and my work. And what I think happens is this transformation when parents are learning and they see a life that they can actually aspire to, the more aspiring they have for their children. We need that in our communities more than ever. In the 21st century, we live in a knowledge economy. We don't live in a tech economy or a social media economy or a capitalist economy. We live in a knowledge economy. And what that simply means is that people are going to pay you for what you know and what you can do. They're not going to pay you for what's on your resume. What's on your resume might get them to take a look at you or be interested in you, maybe.
Right.
But what they're going to ask you is, what can you do? And what you can do can't be what you could do yesterday because knowledge is evolving. Families have to continue to evolve their knowledge. They have to be really, really critical thinkers about their not only their children's future, but their children will model them. And to the extent that children see their parents learning, I mean, if you look at families who have parents who have gone to college or families who are doing things or families who are entrepreneurs, the kids are looking at that and they're modeling that. They're getting something from that. And we have to know that they look at everything we do. And when we do that, when we participate in learning with them, when we constantly are trying to keep things in the proper context, when we constantly are encouraging them, when we're teaching them how to be spouses, how to live in a relationship. Um, Boy, that's a powerful message that we send to them. So that is what LEAD is going to be and is all about. And we have pivoted to a number of programming additions to supplement, help that. And we've also been very deliberate about delineating the program. So it's less about whether you're at Penn or Northwestern or Duke or Spelman or Morehouse, and more about let's make sure you're at a place where your passion and your learning is taking place. So we're not going to be just in the Ivy League schools like we've been for almost 40 years, or even the Black Ivies for that matter. But
Right.
we're going to be in places that we think offer an opportunity for our young people to be nurtured when they're in a K-12 environment. We're also going to be going back to starting next year as early as the seventh grade,
Wow.
where we have a program called Inspired by Lead, which will be seventh and eighth grade, and that will be a 1 week program, and then eighth and ninth, ninth and 10th, which will be the second phase of that learning. And then you'll move into the aspiring junior going into their senior year, which is our core, what we call now our GSLI, used to be called SBI.
Mhm.
And that program will then evolve to GILI, which is what you do when you're in college.
Wow.
And then we have a program, EDLI, which essentially is for executive learning development, and that includes learning for parents.
Wow.
Last year, during our sessions, even though we were all virtual, we had a session specifically for parents, and we invited parents to come. We had over 100 families participate.
Wow.
And what we talked about is emotional intelligence and mindfulness and how that impacts the way we parent and the way we make decisions.
Wow.
Uh, those are the kinds of things that we have to continue to create. And Black and brown kids and families need not to be intimidated by what they don't know, because none of us know as much as we can know.
You're absolutely right. I just want to start off by saying my deepest condolences and just sending you love and light as you continue to raise your grandson and keeping your daughter in memory and family learning. Wow, that is huge. That is so powerful because that is really the key. It really is. And I just said to someone last night, we're actually doing a social justice call later tonight about just in our community and so much, right? So much stuff,
Yeah,
so much work we have to do.
yeah, yeah,
And but we were talking about I'm always looking at the silver lining. I think that's my gift. And I call them COVID blessings, right? Because we're in this time the fact that we're actually being able to see our kids in school learning for the first time ever, because the only other way we were able to be in school was if we went to volunteer for story time or something like that, right?
Right.
But we could never just really walk into a classroom, you know.
Right.
And this, I think, because I know just being a PTO mom and, for 20 something years and, getting parents engaged, I know parents are exhausted. I've talked to the best parents. Some are board members now, right? And they
Right.
talked about they were that parent that their kids almost didn't make the field trip because they were the last ones to turn in the permission slip because, we're in the tri-state area. So most people, we live in the suburbs. It's like a bedroom community, so everyone comes home to sleep at night, but they're exhausted from traveling all day
Right.
and working all day. So even parents with the best intentions, right, are like, I have this pile of paperwork that I got to go through, and sometimes kids permission slips, or I got to respond to a teacher and this and that. Even that, I was talking to, like I said, a board member recently who said I was that parent, because I was expressing to her, we have to dig deeper to help parents understand. And so family learning is huge. So I've always tried to be creative and creating ways to get more parents engaged, right?
Right.
And more parents less intimidated about coming into the school or coming to meet the principal or the superintendent or whatever, and not waiting for something to go wrong to have
Right.
that conversation, right? So
Right.
I always talked about, let's meet the parents where they are. Let's kind of have like cottage parties in different neighborhoods. And,
Hmm.
so always trying to evolve in that way. But family learning is huge. So I'm hoping, my prayer is that when we come out of this and remote learning, that parents will have seen so much and heard so much, even while they might have been in the next room or the next desk. And they're kind of like, and I think I've heard of some conversations where parents are like, I've had to already have a conversation with the principal about the teacher or some things that are being said. And
Right.
maybe teachers, I mean, I love teachers. Most of my friends are teachers, but they're not everybody has our kids' welfare at heart. And so we got to be mindful of that. So I'm praying that the family learning is a real situation that's going to start happening on a different level, and we're going to be more engaged as a community in what's going on in our kids' life, and understanding that. So the fact that LEAD is taking on that approach is huge. It's huge. We used to run something called Sankofa School in our community. And,
Hmm.
my husband's an African studies professor, but a dear friend of mine, self-taught, our history, because she was just angry that, we're taught in school that, kind of like our history started at enslavement, and
Yeah.
we know our greatness. And well, many people
Absolutely.
don't, right? So
That's
many
right.
people
That's
don't.
right.
So
That's
it's
right.
important, but and it was so funny how the conversation and the kids were learning and they were empowered, and then she started giving the kids comedic names. And then we started going past what was happening on this continent, but back home in our continent.
That's
And
right.
and so the kids were going home with lesson plans and different things, but the parents didn't understand. And the parents started getting weary. And they were really concerned because they were like, well, wait a minute, is this what is this language you're speaking, meta lecture? And and these kids were in fifth and sixth grade. My kids were a part of that.
Yeah.
And so, but we started seeing the divide, and some parents were like, oh no, you're not. So that family learning. And I said to the leader, I said, we need to start a book club. We need to have the parents learning with the kids something, because people are starting to get scared.
Well,
You know?
if you think about COVID, which has wreaked havoc on our country and certainly has disproportionately affected our culture. You know, people talk about have talked to me, and in fact, I gave a little talk. I'm creating a series around this idea of mentioning things that come to my consciousness and then just actually recording it
Love it.
on a regular basis because I often think things and I say I'll say that to somebody and they say why don't you tell somebody about that? And I say, well, because I was just talking to myself. But I said, no, you got to say that out loud. And so anyway, I people have been complaining so much about COVID with respect to what's happening with our schools and our kids not learning and our kids being behind because of it. And I recorded something the other day and I said, the conversation about COVID beyond the health crisis that it has created, but just looking at the learning crisis that it is created, is not learning crisis. I don't describe it as the learning crisis that relates to the fact that we're in this virtual world and kids are so far behind and they don't have the social interaction and isolation has happened and there's more suicides. And I realize all those things, but those are functions of a dysfunctional society. Those are byproducts of an entire society that's not functional. It's not necessarily um, a direct uh, response to virtual learning, because people have been doing virtual learning for a long time. What it is a direct response to, and what the debate maybe should be about, is not why our kids are behind in virtual learning, or why our instructors were not, or, have not thrived in a virtual learning. What we ought to be asking is, why weren't we prepared? Why weren't we ready for it? Lead pivoted to a virtual learning overnight. And the reason we did is because 2 years before, we had actually started 4 years before, we had actually started our Leading for Life Challenge, which is our entrepreneurial capstone project. We had started doing that virtually. And so we had a rhythm about how to create it, how to do the rooms, and how to have engagement, and how to use multimodalities, because we know that the average attention span is less than 3 minutes.
Right.
And we started doing all kinds of things to make the experience great,
I
because
remember
we
that.
knew.
Wow. My
And so
son participated in that capstone online. I remember that now.
but
Wow.
what happened now is that, we did the Leading for Life Challenge, and then we also did a virtual campus tour for all of our campuses. And we had a master class where each campus taught a subject. So Northwestern taught marketing, and they had John Rogers, who's one of the famed, financiers in this country. And then we had a Coach K at Duke University talk about leadership. I mean, and Shane Battier, who was a player at Duke, and they got a chance. So 150 kids get to see what usually only one campus gets to see. And then we had this virtual learning where a lead alum actually taught, emotional intelligence and mindfulness to 100 parents. Um, I mean, the point is that the issue is preparation. And so now what LEAD focuses on is a concept that we call pipeline preparation and readiness. So when we think about pipeline, we think about K-12. That is a pipeline. I had a debate with a colleague of mine who said she didn't like the word pipeline because it feels like, you're stuffing things in it. And I said, and that's one of the things about words in our lexicon, is they have both a positive and a negative meaning. I said, you chose to take the negative meaning. I'm going to give you the positive side. And the positive side is that we're building skills and competencies that will serve them as they try to gravitate and navigate the 21st century. When we talk about preparation, we're talking about college or apprenticeships. And I've been very deliberate about saying or apprenticeships, because everybody doesn't necessarily have to go to college to take their next step in life. And Lee will be playing a role in some of that in our partnerships with some companies. So we're not going to be just all about college.
Right.
Um, the third thing is readiness. So when do you get ready? Well, you get ready after you've come through the pipeline, you've learned some stuff. Now you've gone through some preparation, and now you're ready to walk through the door as you move into the career stage. And so we are about preparing and developing and creating pipeline preparation and readiness, not only though for those young people who start with us as early as the seventh grade starting next year,
Mm-hmm.
but we're talking about adults who are mid-career, who are, in your case, your husband's case, an assistant professor who wants to be an associate professor, who wants to be a full professor, who wants to be a provost, who wants to be a college president. They're in pipeline preparation and readiness in their lives as well. So how do we help them?
Wow.
And
Wow.
so fundamentally, it's about saying the ethos of LEAD is about that. We chose 5 industries that we have focused on, which are precision medicine, the Internet of Things, advanced manufacturing, artificial intelligence, and robotics. And we said those 5 industries all have a skill set that is transcendent, meaning critical thinking and problem solving, design thinking, collaboration and innovation, media literacy are all skills that they're going to need, regardless of which of those industries they chose, or none of them. Those skills are going to be important regardless. But we've chosen those five industries because not one black unicorn company or brown unicorn company has been built in those industries yet.
That's
And so, given that, we want to create the mindset that you can be part of that. You can create that unicorn if you choose, or you can work for that unicorn, or you can think about what it would mean to be part of it. And in that context, we're saying those five industries are going to be trillion-dollar industries or already are. You should think about that context. What does that mean?
right. Wow.
Because we want people to think differently about learning. The real concept in our what underpins pipeline preparation and readiness is learning access models, thinking differently about how you learn, where you learn, what you learn, and how you apply it. So learning doesn't mean being in a classroom. I
Right.
tell I tell my scholars particularly, treat every conversation as a classroom.
Mm,
When you're having a conversation with somebody on the street, I don't care if it's somebody that's homeless, treat it as a classroom. What are you going to learn? And
right.
you can't possibly learn, by the way, if you're always talking. So, you know, my mother used to say, "Look, you got two ears and one mouth. You can't possibly use all of them simultaneously."
My mother
So,
said the same.
what you need to do is like slow one down and use those other two things more intently. And
Amen.
so, even teaching them how to listen, teaching them how to listen. I have my middle daughter. She said, "Dad, I'm just frustrated," because she has a teenager. My granddaughter who is living in Japan now.
Wow.
And my daughter said, "Dad, I'm just so frustrated with Allison." And I said, "I know." I said, "Because we were frustrated with you." But I said, "The thing that I want you to understand is this: the way to get through to our children, and I've learned this, your dad has learned this, because he didn't know it necessarily when you were growing up,
Mm-hmm.
is most times kids really just want to know you're listening to them. Not that you hear them, but that you're listening to them.
Right.
And that means, because they're two different things. When you are listening, your heart and your mind and your spirit are engaged. It's kind of like you can't drive the car if the brake is still on. It's
Mm,
not going anywhere.
amen.
You can't drive the car if the motor is not on. And you certainly can't drive the car if you don't have a steering wheel. So the point is okay, I got steering wheel, I got brake off, and I got engine running. Now we can go. Well, that's what listening is. It's
Mm-hmm.
the engagement of all the features of human interest
Right.
and human engagement. It's engaging all of the levers as
Right.
opposed to just one of them.
Right.
So your ears may be working, but if your heart's not working in concert with your ear, your spirit's working in a different direction, or you're distracted, then you're not listening.
Right. Wow, that's really powerful. I didn't talk about my son who ended up coming to lead at UPenn, and the reason we actually exposed him, and I'm saying this for you as well as folks listening. At that point in 10th grade, he only was interested in baseball and music. He's a musician and an excellent musician and excellent baseball player. Actually played in Spain in college at a jazz festival recently or 2 years ago. And so I started thinking about my older brother who wouldn't leave my mom's house. And I thought, oh, this kid might be on my sofa for a long time. And as a parent of five, you probably can agree to this. Like, we love them, but they got to go at some point. They gotta
No, no, not at some point. They got to go now.
go. I mean, I was kind of thinking like I was a young mother, so I was kind of thinking about that at day one. I was like, oh Lord. So, I was like, oh, what can we expose him to? So, he was definitely not interested in doing anything. Terrified, was always a little reserved in school, took honors in AP courses in high school, but only because his principal suggested. And I wanted to say that and mention that. I say this to parents all the time, that network, that mentoring kids. And I know that I know this is not only my children, don't generally listen to their parents.
they listen, but they listen, but they don't hear them. And what that means is they tune you out until it's appropriate to recall.
There
You
you
know,
go.
like the Bible says, train up a child in the way they should go, and they'll return to it when they're old.
Exactly.
I know that all of us, I certainly can speak for this most of the time in the Black community, our parents would tell us stuff and be
Hmm.
like, yeah, really, I'm not going to be like that. No way. And then when you get to be a parent, you say, boy, my mom was so right. My dad was so, oh my gosh.
They were and completely right. We just weren't,
Just
like you said, weren't
pathetic.
hearing it. And it bothers my husband completely. He's like, I don't understand it. We raise them, we feed them, we sacrifice. And so what I've learned to do is just sidestep that. I say what I'm gonna say, but then I have created a mentor, a village around my children where I text somebody in a minute and or email someone in a minute and get the point across that I need to get across or have them do the
Right.
work that is not, and then they respond, right? Because there's a different respect level, etc., and all of that. And I kind of I can't emphasize that enough for parents to create that. So when my son went to lead, again, I still have the picture in my mind of us dropping him off and him looking like, OMG, what are y'all doing to me?
Right.
It was one of the best experiences of his life. I know that for sure. I know that for sure. So many things opened up for him. One, he got to live on a college campus for the first time, and he's the one who said he would never survive college, period. A
Mhm.
class, dorming, all of that. So that
Right.
was huge for him. That lifted his confidence level.
Yeah.
I remember him calling and competing, and I guess he was having some disagreements with some of the kids in some of the competitions, and he was like, there's a lot of know-it-alls, and I'm trying to, this one kid, I'm trying to, get him to, like, he can't
Right.
be bullying everybody,
Right.
he,
Right.
he thinks he knows everything. So
Yep.
that also was huge for him, right? And we're on the phone kind of telling him, be respectful, mind your manners, that kind of stuff. You still representing us as a family, and there's a way to disagree and that kind of stuff. But he didn't like the way this kid, I guess, was kind of running things or trying to run everything around everybody else. So that was good. And then I remember him also calling home and saying, what's summering in the vineyard? So we had never been to the vineyard as a family, but he was around a group of kids that some of them had that experience. So that was that. It opened up his mind in so many ways. And he's done asset management, all these different internships. And this year he'll be interning at Deloitte. But most of those connections came from his network that he met at Lead.
Yeah. You talk about summering at the vineyard as an example. You know, it's great to be able to take our kids through the fact that the vineyard exists and the inkwell and understanding how all the history of the vineyard evolved over time. That you know, despite the fact we came here, in 1614 or 1619 rather, and all of the tragic things that has happened, the resiliency of our culture
Mm.
is that we have had great things that have occurred over time in spurts, in fits, and starts, but they add to the history and brilliance of who we are as a culture.
Right.
And I think that for our kids to understand that, I've got a book behind me I was talking to someone about recently. It's called Our Kind of People.
Yes.
Um,
I love that book.
and and the fact of the matter is that most kids don't understand that we have a black elite in this country.
Mhm.
You can call them, bougie. You can, which is what we used to call them, and you
That's
can
right.
call them all kinds of stuff, right?
Right.
But to know that it exists and understand why and how it came to be, and while you may agree or disagree that it exists or doesn't exist in your mind, it's learning, it's knowledge. And how does that help you? What do you think about when you think about your own family? When
Right.
you think about that? So family learning, we're working on a game that I'm working on actually with a colleague in the UK and in Italy on designing a game for family learning that engages, it's a board game that actually engages a board game with an electronic um, television program.
Wow.
And the point is that what we are attempting to do at Lead is not only talk about family learning at the center, but we say, well, if it's about pipeline preparation readiness, and if it's about really thinking about not only these industries and not only these concepts, but what tools are you going to give them? What
Mm,
kinds of what kind of things are you going to kind of put in their hands or expose them to that they can actually do that? It sort of goes to the heart of your program, the power of exposure. I don't think people understand sometimes that, a lot of what we experience in life or not
mm,
has a lot to do with what we've been exposed to.
yep.
And I think about, I didn't get a chance to expose my kids to nearly the things that I would have liked to. They certainly, um, are not exposed to as much as my grandchildren are. Like I said, I got a daughter in Japan, a
Wow.
granddaughter in Japan right now.
It's amazing.
And so she's over there studying and then she said to me the other day, when we talked via Zoom, she said, Poppy, because she's in 10th grade now, going to the 11th. And so she said, Poppy, when I come home next year for the summer, because she's going to stay there until she graduates.
Wow.
She said, Poppy, when I come home next summer, we're going on the college tour, right? I said, yes, Allie, we're going on the college tour, definitely. And I said, well, what's your number one college? Now,
Mhm.
Allie's dad is white and her mom is black. And what Allie has come in touch with since she's been in Japan is who she is as a black woman.
Mm, awesome.
And she said to me, she said, Poppy, I said, well, Allie, what's the school that you want to go to? She said, well, certainly I want to go to Howard. That's my dream school. That's where I'm going. I'm like, phew. I mean, in my mind, I'm like, I never would have thought. I heard this child talk about that. I mean, her parents are Mormon, she lives in California, and she's got her access to it. She's a straight A student even in Japan. And
Wow.
the point is that she can go anywhere she wants. But what she said is, Dad, Mom, Poppy, I want to go to Howard. So I'm going to take her on to a number of schools.
Right.
But the point being here is that what your kids experience and what we find at Lead is this secret sauce. And we've never been able to bottle it. We just continue to try to practice it. And here's what it is. It takes a kid who comes from a neighborhood where they don't have hardly anything, but they get into the program because they have this enormous potential that is either seen or unseen. And they get into the program and they see these other kids who have everything. And they go, And then there's these kids who have everything and they see these kids who have virtually nothing. And they both ask the question, how in the world are they as smart as me? And the reason they say that, or I'm as smart as they are and I don't have all that. And so what happens is that secret sauce comes together. It's like making ketchup. I don't know what's in ketchup, but it always tastes good because it has a flavor that mixes all these little tiny things in it, and it's really good, right?
Mm,
And I think that we build our own ketchup,
yep.
and we do it in a way that we don't have to do anything. The scholars do it themselves. And what we find is I've never had the experience of having a leader, either in college or certainly an alum, say that if it wasn't for Lead, I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing because it changed the way I thought about stuff. It changed my whole thinking.
Yes.
And so we when you go back to the earlier question that you asked at the outset, which is why would parents want to look at Lead?
Mm-hmm.
Um, One, after you ask the question is, do we know as much as we can know? Are we ready for the 21st century? Are our kids ready for the 21st century? Have we done our best work yet?
Right.
Have our kids done their best work yet? And not just because they're kids, but have they done even what they could do even in the stage of life they're in? And if
Right.
the answer to those questions are no, 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 and no again, then you have to send them somewhere and you have to be part of something that's bigger than you. And Lead is certainly bigger than me. It's bigger than the
Right.
21,000 people that are a part of it, including your family.
Wow. I wish Lead could be in every school district. Honestly, because I know, one of my mentors always says to me, you're trying to save the whole world, Rona, and I know that's not possible. So you kind of have to work with who's right in front of you. But sometimes I still want to save the whole world, right? And I want to get to those families that we can't get to. So these concepts, and I know you're thinking about, 60 years down the line. I'm hoping that that's a part of that, and in my mind, I'd like to bring that into some of the school systems and that thinking and the family learning, because I think that's what's going to need that's what we need. That's definitely what we need. You talked about your granddaughter being in Japan. I just think that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I would love to connect her to my daughter, who's a junior, who's already decided when we went to Spain to see her brother play in the jazz festival that she is not going to college in the United States. And if she could have, she would not be in high school in the United States. So
Mhm.
she's already on a mission. And I love that your granddaughter wants to go to Howard, because we found Howard kind of late, 4 kids in, and let me tell you, it is, yeah, my son, and he's also another young person who he went to a magnet, very competitive school, public school, where he felt invisible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he was always zooming toward MIT or Stanford, or, computer science, coding, etc., Harvard. But when he chose, how this is the best decision he feels like he's ever made in his life.
Yeah. Well, I would tell you this. I went to an HBCU. My wife went to an HBCU. Two of our daughters went to HBCUs. We're an HBCU family. Now, having said that, we went to predominantly white schools for graduate school, most of us.
Right.
But that being said, um, when I went to Fisk, I'm dating myself. When I went to Fisk in 1972, um, there was an opportunity for me to go to Harvard. I was a good student. I could have gone. But I went to visit Fisk when I was in the 10th grade. And this is one of the reasons why LEAD is so important. I went to visit an HBCU in the 10th grade. And what they used to do is the recruiter from Nashville drove to Pittsburgh, which is my hometown, plucked 5, 6 students from our local high school, which was 3,500 kids, put those students in her car when we were on break, and
Mm.
drove us to Nashville for Greek Show weekend. We go down to Nashville, and the first of all, we're enamored that we're on a college campus. That's sort of the first thing. Now, most of us have been to college campuses before. We got two big universities in Pittsburgh, Carnegie Mellon and Pitt, and I was in Upward Bound, so I lived on CMU's campus for a while. So it wasn't new to me, a college campus, but it wasn't an HBCU. It wasn't that. So I go to Fisk, and that experience, have that experience over Greek Show weekend, see some of the most beautiful Black women I've ever seen in my entire life, um, from that day till this, and get in this mindset of what else is there. I mean, where else could you go and have this social experience? Plus, we're in the midst of this civil rights movement, because this is 1968, and stuff is happening in America. And when he asked me that question as a senior, when the guy from Harvard came to recruit and said, it's now 2 years hence. Well, would you guys consider applying to Harvard? Now, I'm sure that I could have gotten in. I don't think I could have survived it, because I don't think that socially I could have survived it. Academically, I think I would have been okay for a while, but the social nature of
Right.
it probably would have blew me away, because I just wasn't mature enough, I don't think, to do it. And as I look back, people have said to me, "Do you think that your career would have been any different had you gone to Harvard?" And I said,
Wow.
"Well, let's see. I was a CEO of a $5 billion enterprise. Um,
Yeah.
I've lived or worked around the world. Um, I've I've had I've made more money than I ever thought I was going to make, and then lost it and made more and made some. and then wind up in a place where I live in a community, 30 miles south of the city of Atlanta, in a well, relatively small house on a lake that I love. And I don't need to have a big car or a big house or any of that stuff because I've had all that and I don't care about any of that. And what I'm passionate about, I get to do every day because I retired at 53 because I could.
Wow.
And the point is that no, I don't think I could have had a better life than Harvard because God had me exactly where I was supposed to be.
Amen. Amen. So, I know LEAD has been on a lot of the predominantly Lloyd's institution campuses. And I know my daughter experienced LEAD
Yep.
also at Hampton. That was the only one I think. Is that the only HBCU you guys have ever
No,
participated
actually,
in?
we participated at we've had campuses at Morehouse and at Spelman and at Hampton and Howard at one point.
Oh,
However, for a
oh wow.
decade or so, we haven't been on any of those campuses. That's changing this year. In fact, at 1 o'clock today, I'm going to be finalizing a program for Fisk, where we're going to be on Fisk campus this year, even though virtual. And I'm also finalizing a program with Morehouse Medical School that I'm hoping to partner with a predominantly white university to create a program at the intersection of health, public health, medicine, and engineering. And we would have a lead program that focuses on that area, just like we also launched this year, last year rather, a program called Rex, which is a real estate exchange. That program operated at MIT and Cornell and at Miami. This year, the program is going to operate at those same three schools, but it's also adding Harvard and it's also adding Howard this year. So the point is that we're moving to a place where our colleges are not the centerpiece; it's the learning. It's less
Yep.
to me about whether you want to go to UPenn and Wharton. It's less
Right.
about whether you want to go to Duke. I want you to have those choices, and we're going to give you an opportunity to see all of them. But what we want you
Right.
to really do and be in tune with is how do you think about the world? How is this experience continuing to shape your life and shape the lens by which you see the world? And that's what it's about.
Wow. So I can't thank you enough, first of all, for all of this information. I can't wait to go back and watch this video because I didn't want to write stuff down while we were talking, but such a powerful program. I really don't feel enough people that I know about it. So I'm your biggest advocate in my
Yes.
neck of the woods and around. I constantly tell folks. So if a parent is looking at this or a student is looking at this, what would you say there's a particular type of student you're looking for? Do they have to have a certain GPA? Um, I also know this, and I know that. So when I was growing up, I will say this: only program I think I remember, maybe not when I was growing up, when my oldest was young, is like they used to have something at John Hopkins. I can't remember it. It was like a gifted
Mm-hmm.
program, and I remember saying something either to my mom or someone, and I remember it being a fee. And so and when I do workshops with parents, one of the
How
first
much?
things
Uh,
parents ask or think about is, yeah, and so they almost, I feel like, kind of turn off right there. They stop listening because even before they know that what the cost is, because they're like, you know what, this is, I can't afford another
right.
thing, right? And I will say this about LEAD. I don't remember exactly what the fee is, and I know my son fortunately got some assistance, and that was a blessing. But for what there's no price on what they got out of this, and what allowed them to open up the doors. How LEAD propelled them to open up different doors, and I can't even imagine what things would have been like if they hadn't gone to LEAD, and if the subsequent programs would have even worked. And so there is no price on that, and it's almost like an investment. And so because I've had kids that have played sports, right, and I know there are a lot of parents out there who are dead set on the athletic path, which is a whole nother topic that I have good and bad about, because I've heard parents say, I'm not doing that program because he's not missing or she's not missing. And I get it, but there comes a point where you kind of have to, you got to have a little bit of both. And the fact that my if you're an athlete, the fact that my kids had robust resumes, I would like to say, when they were seniors in high school, I'm sure opened up those doors for the full tuition scholarships that they received from Howard and from the other schools. And so there's no price. This is an investment. The same way I spent so much money traveling with my son for baseball around the country, way less than what I paid for lead, or
Well,
what cost.
it is
So,
clearly you use the word right. We don't talk about people giving to lead anymore. We talk about investing.
amen,
We talk
amen.
about investing because it's either pay me now or pay me later. When your child comes into the world, you have to decide, where your resources are going to go. Now, the first thing is that, let me be clear. Um, when we're in residence, the program is about $4,000. That includes everything, though. We pay for the kids to travel to campus. We pay for them to live on campus. We pay for them to all the books and materials. We pay for the staff that looks after them. But we have to raise additional money because the average cost of a lead program is about $6,000. Nobody pays that. First of all, most families can't. There's some that can, because Penn
Right.
charges $10,000 for their summer program, and it's only 1 week.
Wow.
But the fact of the matter is that Penn can do that. Penn believes that that's what their value proposition is. For us, we say parents who pay also pay for parents who can't. And so every year, in 2020 was no different. About 35 to 40% of our applicants who get in are on some form of scholarship.
Okay.
Why? Because we have parents who can pay and do pay. We have we do have an eligibility requirement for those who receive scholarship, and they are very simple. One, the household income less than $75,000 a year. We know that a family of three or family of four, if you got, even if you're making 75 grand for a family of four, that's still hard. It's still tough. You're still struggling because inflation is high, housing is high, all those things. The second criteria is that usually the young people are on reduced or subsidized school lunch, or they're on a scholarship at the private school they're at, if they're in private school. We know that. Okay, we take that into account. The third criteria, which is, also it's an and, so you have to meet at least two of the three. And the third one is you have a catastrophic event, a divorce, a death, a catastrophic illness of the parent, or a job loss, major job loss of one or both of the parents. We know those things exist as well. So eligibility for scholarship support, we evaluate every application on the basis of that criteria. The other thing is that we actually do require that every family make an investment in the program. The application fee is $50, and I've had parents say, well, I can't afford to pay that. Well, if you can't afford to pay $50, then you're lying to yourself about how you feel about investing in your child, because you're spending $50 on your weave or your wig or your hair or your nails or your shoes or your something. And the dad is doing same. And the point is that you're telling me $50 is too much to invest in your child exploring a program that he or she might get a full scholarship for, or at least reasonable amount, that you're investing in their future. You're going to tell me that you can't do that? And I'm going to tell you that you're not being truthful and honest about what you're committed to. I do executive coaching for a lot of C-suite executives, in part of my life. And because my wife owns it, she is the principal of a firm that does that kind of work. And
Mm.
as an executive coach, oftentimes what I ask executives is, tell me what you are committed to. Tell me what you value. They say, well, I really value my family. or I really value my children, or I really value, this or that. And then I say, okay, so how much time do you spend in an 8-hour day or a 10-hour day or your waking hours committed to those things you say you value?
Right.
And what you find is oftentimes the audio doesn't match the video, is that they spend a lot of time with things that are different than the things that they say they value. If you
Wow.
value being with your children, then don't be
Mhm.
mad because you're doing virtual learning.
No,
Understand that
embrace
that's
it.
just part of it. And this is
Yeah,
a season in which you're getting a chance to do what you say you really care about.
it's true.
So
Amen.
but then on the other hand, if your child comes home with a C or doesn't get straight A's, don't focus on the C.
Right.
Celebrate the A's and the B's they got. They need to know that you celebrate them regardless of whether or not they didn't get an A, or that B or C, or that C is not going to matter in the grand scheme of things.
Right. Right.
They need to know you celebrate them, that you care about their accomplishments, that it's not that you won't be tough on them. And you not, man, I had a warden for a mother. But the fact of the matter is that, you know, um, she didn't really know how to celebrate either.
Mm-mm.
She was hard.
Yeah.
And kids need to feel celebrated, but they also need to have structure, and they know you love them when you give them both.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that's really important that you said that. And raising my kids and exposing them to all these different programs like LEAD, I think it's important just to be able to open their minds up and have them on their journey to finding their passion and what they love the most, because that's what I've always told my kids: don't focus on money, focus on what you love. And I know for a young person hearing that, it's kind of like, huh? But that is really what I want. I just said, do what you love.
That's
So
right.
LEAD was just one of the programs that I was like, okay, just open up your mind and see. And then you never know who you're gonna meet and what's around the corner and all that kind of good stuff. And I just want to share with you one quick story before we go. But when I was dropping my son off at UPenn, of course, everything's a family event for us. We brought the nieces and nephews who live in South Jersey. We listen. They range from age 2 to 10, but
Right.
it's an opportunity for them to be on a college campus, an opportunity for them to see their cousin.
Right.
We're celebrating. So it's like a 20 of us dropping him off. And we went over. Someone told us there's a food truck right on the street by UPenn.
Mm-hmm.
Best fish in Philly. So we
Yeah.
stopped by the food truck and we're talking to the brother. And, everything. My husband and I, everything's going to be an educational experience.
Right.
Everything.
Right.
He says to us, why is there so many of y'all? What are y'all doing? What are y'all up here for? And we told him what was going on. And that brother came outside of that truck. I will never forget this. And he wept. He was so proud of us, my son, the program, the opportunity. It moved him. And he said, wow, where would I be if I had somebody expose me to? He said, I've been here he talked about how many years, and he said, I never see that many Black kids around here, walking this campus and stuff. And he was just blown away. So that, like, whatever my son experienced was his thing, but that I will never forget that. Never, ever, ever
Well,
forget.
we have said one of the conversations, and of course now, Wharton has a Black dean, a female Black dean at Wharton, Erica James, who is a brilliant scholar and just an incredible woman that I've known for quite a long time. But the one thing that I said to Penn, is that we've sent over 1,100 leaders to the University of Pennsylvania, and 100% of them graduated, and 75% of them paid their own way. And I said, when you do the economic analysis of how many people we've sent you and how much money you've made off of LEAD, what your ROI is as a business school, that's what you care about in part. Um, we've done you pretty well. But the reason that we're not at Stanford now is because Stanford didn't think they wanted us to pay them to send leaders there. And we said, we're not going to do that.
Wow.
We're not going to pay you to send you very bright black and brown kids
Right.
who can come to your school and graduate. And unlike all these other programs that you have, which are nice programs, most of them are not programs where you're actually able to get kids who can come to a program on your campus and then come to school here, apply, get in, graduate, and most graduate in 4 years. So, you know, I'm very proud of what we do, but I'm also not fooled about the fact that what we're doing is just scratching the surface of what we have to do. And that's what I'm going to spend, until I'm ready to hang them up for good, which I don't know when that's going to be. Um, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing and trying to be as much as I can a cheerleader for our families and for our young people, for our parents,
Yes.
because they have a hard challenge. Many of them, whether they have resources or not. I had to remind a colleague at Morgan Stanley recently who said, I want kids to come to. We have a program called Jumpstart with them. He says, I want kids to come to Jumpstart who are not like my kids, who don't have a lot, and I want to see them there. And I said, your kids are black, right? Yes. I said, so I want you to understand that even though you may have resources, your kids still are going to have a hard way to go. Just because you got resources doesn't mean anything in this country. You
Amen.
still got to fight. You got to get out here and be ready. And so I said, so we got to have some of your kids because some of your kids are going to pay for some of the kids whose parents don't have a dime.
Yes.
I said, so we need your kids and we need to get your kids exposed to those kids because that's what's going to give them confidence that they can make it in a world that is not forgiving.
The secret sauce.
That's right.
The secret sauce. Wow. This has been powerful. Thank you, Dr. Drake. This has been, whew, I am full. I am full. I am full. And yes, we do have a lot more work to do, but scratching the surface is something. And I have to remind myself that every day because I definitely want to do more, but doing what we're doing
Well,
is
I want you to I know that your mentor is telling you to, not overtax yourself, but I'll give you another side of that coin is that you can change the world. And the reason you can is because you won't limit how you see it.
right. You're
And
right.
so keep working to change the world because all of us, we've got to do, even though we might be contributing a piece to that puzzle, a small piece,
Yep.
we got to believe that we can and that we are, because that's the fuel in the tank.
Definitely. Absolutely. I was, you're in Georgia. I was on the phone with our newly elected Congresswoman Nikema Williams, who is my lead alum mentor.
Yeah.
My daughter lived with her and worked with her at Planned Parenthood, and she's a huge part of our family. And you know, just kind of encourage her because we were in a social justice conversation of some craziness happening in our own town, and I text her to say, "Girl, we need you," and she's dealing with her major stuff and she says it's hard but we got to keep going, we just got to keep going. And so yeah, we have to all do what we're doing and make our difference. So
Any way that I can be helpful, by the way, to the parents that you're engaging with, feel free to give them my information. Michelle I'll
connect.
talk to them personally.
Awesome.
Applications are open right now. I would suggest if they go to the website, look at what's out there, encourage them to do it. We're going in directly into school districts these days. We have Birmingham City Schools. We've actually gone into the school district. We've done the same thing in Texas. We've done the same thing in Kansas City, Missouri, because we want to identify kids that nobody else is talking about, that
Yes.
counselors are not promoting, that they're not telling them that they're capable of doing amazing things in this life. And so we're going to tell them if they're not going to tell them. So we are holding town halls for parents,
Love it.
um, and for them, if you got enough parents together, I'd be happy to host a town hall, have some of my team and myself join, and really tell them not only about LEAD and what we're doing, but have leaders talk to them about what's going on. You've got kids who are walking testimonials about their experience. Um, but I think parents need to hear, parents need to apply. Um, don't let money stop them.
Right.
If they're interested and their kids are doing, people say, well, what is your GPA? You ask that, we judge an application on the basis of their academic profile. Yes.
Hmm.
Their recommendations. Yes. Their extracurricular activities. Yes. And their essay responses. Yes. And we ask them we look at those things as barometers. We have a rubric that we use, a system that we use to evaluate each of those categories. Um, we have we have people who have been accepted to the program that have a 2.5, even though our average GPA is well above that. But
Awesome.
the point is not that we don't turn somebody away out of hand just because their GPA might be lower. We look at the whole person
Right.
and we ask ourselves the question, would this experience at Lead be of benefit to this young person? Would
Mm.
they actually be able to, be somebody that is going to contribute to help change the world or make meaningful change in the world? If the answer to that question is yes, then 9 times out of 10, that student's going to get accepted.
I love that.
Sometimes even above a student who has a 4.0.
Right, right. I love that. And I love that you're doing town halls. Definitely. You know, my wheels are already spinning. And all right, I'm all thinking of all the educators and schools I'm connected to, et cetera. And
And
that is
because
awesome.
we're in a virtual world, we can tap into everybody
You can.
all at the same time. So,
COVID blessings, I call it. So many
that's
different things
right.
are going to come out of this that we can do that we didn't do before
Right.
and do differently. So I just want to thank you tremendously from the bottom of my heart for your time, your energy, your love, your passion for our oh wait, are those gems I see at the top behind you? Wow. I just noticed those. Oh my goodness. Love it, love it, love it. So that's where all that phenomenal energy, right, is coming from. And thank you. I can't say that enough. And I'm so excited for all the young people and the parents that will listen and hear and hopefully have more questions for myself or Dr. Drake. We're there, and or my kids who've experienced this journey, and hopefully you'll join the lead, as a part, and lead will become a part of your journey as well, and life-changing journey for my children. So thank you, Dr. Drake. I really appreciate this.
Rona, thank you. Thanks for, reaching out and thanks for having me. And as I said, we stand ready to support you. I can't wait to hear for you to connect me to some of the other lead alums and folks that are helping you. I'm going to ask Michelle to reach out to you so we can make a list. And
Yes.
as Nicola does, we're going to check it twice and then we're going to get
Yes.
on.
No, that's wonderful. That's what we got to keep doing. We got to
Yeah.
keep doing. So thank
Yeah.
you again.
Yeah. Thank
So
you. My pleasure. My pleasure.
all right, have a great afternoon.
Thank you. All right. We'll see you.